everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Josie. This is Write Your Acceptance. Welcome. So if you are in the thick of editing the personal statement, or if you're just starting to think about it, we are going to cover some of the mistakes you want to avoid so that you are writing, the most compelling text possible. So let's talk about the biggest mistakes when editing and writing and developing content for your personal statement. And of course, more importantly, how you can avoid them. Meet Malia's MSU acceptance letter. We worked together on really crafting what she wanted to say, how she wanted to perceive, or how she wanted to kind of convey herself and her values and her perspective without being too showy, without selling herself too much. That was kind of a concern, right? And so you want to really figure out what kinds of conversations you want to capture, what kinds of values you want to kind of say that they're emblematic of who you are, right? If you're a pre-med, you already know how much rides on your personal statement. So let's talk about how you can really avoid these pitfalls to craft the strongest possible proclamation of self. And if you're looking to work with someone and you're looking to kind of partner in your writing, in your messaging, make sure that you click on my link and grab a spot in our calendar to see if we're a good fit. So let's start talking about the first biggest mistake for me is kind of thinking about word count too early. And I get it. Personal statements, it's hard to kind of cut when you've committed to write because it's hard to write in general, right? But you want to make sure that you are writing the most compelling aspect and then you start cutting so that you don't miss out on the kind of punchiest, strongest content because you're too focused on the length. Example, I once worked with a student who cut out all of the emotional depth of her patient story because she thought it was too much, but she was cutting out the actual aspects of the anecdote that made it great, that, while volunteering at the hospice, that she kind of really connected with a patient who wasn't really connecting with anyone, who wasn't really articulating any range of emotional kind of depth to anyone else. And so she took out these moments that showed how she was really committed to this emotional arc with one patient. It showed emotional depth and maturity and social awareness and social cues, right? And it really showed her empathy and passion for connection. Because she was so focused on the length, she kind of cut out the meaning. So another mistake is overloading the personal statement or a section with too much medical jargon. So you want to sound impressive, you want to sound, compelling and like what you're talking about, but you want to show that through kind of self-referential moment. How do you feel about the moment? You don't want it to sound too kind of dictionary, dry, impersonal. You're not a doctor yet. They don't want you to sound like one. They want you to sound like you. So one example, one student talked about the quote, complexities of hepatocellular carcinoma management. Can't really say that. When what she really needed to convey was how her MA experience helped her understand patient care on a human level. It read more like a case study than a personal reflection. And so you don't really need to use so much kind of personal, like medical jargon, right? The fix is go for storytelling over terminology. Instead of diving into the specifics of a disease, focus on what you learned from the interaction with the patient of the doctor. But if you're going to do a research paragraph, or if you're going to do a paragraph centered around the intellectual curiosities of medicine, then you can go into the particularities of a disease and disease management, right? That's gold too, but you want to make sure that you know and you understand what that paragraph is doing for you and advancing your why medicine. Another mistake is when students feeling helpless. And so many students write multiple anecdotes of patient stories or moments of personal moments, but the end goal, the kind of end reflection is that they felt helpless, that they weren't a doctor yet, and that they felt helpless to do anything. They know you're not a physician, right? The committee. So you want to kind of revolve your takeaway and your reflection on action, on what you could control and what you could do. So a student submitted a draft to me. She described 3 separate situations where she was unable to help patients. Her conclusion was basically, quote, I want to be a doctor so I don't feel helpless anymore, right? And so this is understandable, absolutely. But it left the reader, I think, with the wrong impression. It made her sound like a passive observer rather than someone who's actively seeking ways to help, to serve, to remedy an issue, an inequality. And so you really want to kind of think about the fix as more action-packed. Balance those feelings of helplessness with moments where you did make a difference, right? Did you comfort a patient's family? Did you help with kind of closing a language barrier? Show how you've started to grow and learn through your experiences and help to make a difference, right? So I would even caution against words like passion or helplessness in your personal statement. have it in the first draft, but then kind of go back and see, can you be more active? So think about if you have a draft or if you're working a couple paragraphs, are you unsure about what you want to cut? To not lose that heart of the message. Comment below if you want kind of a quick feedback from me and we can kind of think about that. And if you want to learn about how I work with students, grab your spot on my calendar. The link is below so that we can figure out if you're a good fit. I see so many students relying on, and this is the next mistake, on cliches. The magic of medicine. Medicine is my calling. These phrases don't tell the committee specificity, like specifics about who you are, so it resonates with them specifically, right? A student once used a phrase like the magic of medicine, or medicine is magical. And they were basically showing the awe, like how they were in awe of medicine. I find that without concrete examples to feel superficial, and like any student can say it. And if any student can say a phrase or two in your personal statement, it's not specific enough. So you want to paint the picture, realize, kind of show, give us some breadcrumbs as to how you realize that medicine is for you, right? And you don't do that by relying on broad, cliche kind of statements that could work for anyone, so then they don't work for anyone, right? So another mistake is a lack of reflection. Sometimes, and I think sometimes this is the biggest mistake, students will then be like, okay, I want to show and not tell. I want to tell a story. And they'll tell a story, but then they won't reflect on it. You need to kind of take a step back, get into that other register, and really talk about what happened in this kind of experience that changed you, that solidified your medicine. And it could be a very small example, but sometimes students are focusing too much on how they greeted the patient or how they managed this experience, and they don't talk about how it influenced them, specifically their desire to pursue medicine. So always be asking yourself, what did this experience kind of teach me about medicine? How did it strengthen my desire to become a physician? And your reflection is what makes or breaks that section for your personal statement. So to recap, don't just edit for length, edit for impact, right? I tell students, write. Sometimes I'm editing an essay that is, I don't recommend, but sometimes I'm editing personal statements that are 10,000 characters, so double the size or the length, right? But you want to make sure that you are focused on content and impact first. If you're working on your personal statement and you're feeling kind of stuck, touch base with someone. Kind of, think about this as a conversation. It doesn't have to feel so isolating, right? And so you want this personal statement to kind of balance out other aspects of who you are, but always be in the pursuit of why medicine for you. And again, if you want to learn about how I work with students, grab your spot on my calendar and we can chat if you're a good fit. I hope this was helpful. When you are writing, I would kind of think about what hat you're putting on, right? Are you writing and editing, or are you writing just to write? And then you're gonna kind of come back with fresh eyes and see what's most impactful. I have a couple of personal statement videos coming up with samples and getting into the weeds with activities too. So hopefully I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye.